Yeah, my name is Dan Chung. I was born in Korea, Seoul, Korea, in 1977, which makes me 42 years old at this moment. I have 3 kids and a beautiful wife and a proud Chicagoan. My dad told me this story the moment that he decided to leave Korea. He worked at the Central Korean Bank, a really good, prestigious job, and there was no reason for him to leave. They had some parade, some military parade down one of the big streets in Seoul, which happened to be right in front of his office. And back in the 70s, Korea's government was very militaristic, a lot like North Korea, a lot more like North Korea than it is today. So they wanted a perfect pageant down this street, and no windows could be open, but it was the summertime. One of his managers got so tired of it. It was so hot that his employees were trying to work, and he opened the window. And I guess someone from the army saw it, came up the building, found the manager. He took responsibility, and the manager disappeared for like a week. And my dad told me that when the manager came back, he obviously had been tortured for opening a window. And he said this guy was never the same after that. He just lost a couple marbles. He wasn't able to work for very long after that. And he said, that was my breaking point. He said, I don't care about my position in society. I do not want to live in a country that will do that to its own citizens over a window. That's sort of my dad. And I think, my dad like kind of bred that in me, like this distrust for authority. He liked being independent. He was fiercely independent. And I think that rubbed off on me. I don't work for a corporation. I've never done well in structures, and I wasn't a very good student. My parents were very hands-off. My sister, she was like the perfect student. She figured out how to fill out her college applications to study for the SATs on her own. And I think my parents sort of expected me to do the same, to figure it out on my own. I wasn't that type at the time, and I was doing really bad in school, like in the beginning of middle school, like 5th and 6th grade. I would never do my homework. I would always be in trouble at school. And after a while, people would call me king of detention. And my parents never said anything to me. They never pressured me, but I feel like in that situation, as a parent, you should say something to your kid. You should say, hey, well, what's the problem? How can I help? So yeah, I mean, for better or for worse, they allowed me to screw up, and I had to fix it on my own. And that has made me who I am, for better or for worse. I like that I have had to figure things out the hard way, but I ultimately did figure it out. For work, I run an organization that helps North Korean refugees. We've been doing this for almost 17 years. When they cross into China, these people are oppressed, and we've had to figure out a way to help these people outside of the rule of China, outside of the law. Like, we're breaking the law technically in China. I mean, right on the border of North Korea, we wanted to like potentially invest in a farm that was right on the border. And we thought maybe it'll help refugees get across. Some of our donors here in the US are farmers. I called one of them and said, we're thinking about doing this. He's like, okay, do something for me, Dan. Get some soil and bring it back here. I'll do a soil test, and that'll tell you how fertile that land is, right? I was like, okay, fine. So as I was doing this, I was gathering soil. I look up, and I was surrounded by 8 Chinese soldiers with machine guns pointed at me. So they asked me, Are you a journalist? They were worried that I was doing some sort of nuclear test, because right over the border of that region, it was where North Korea tests all their weapons underground. And in the city in China where we were at, it's like an earthquake whenever North Korea does this sort of thing. They've done like 4 or 5. Anyways, they had just done that. I didn't plan my trip around this, and yet I found myself there. I was gathering soil, and this offended these people, and so I had my hands up, and oh my goodness, I was so scared. I was like, I am not gonna see my family for a really, really long time. This is really, really bad. And they're like, do you have a notebook or a computer on you? I said, no. And then they searched the car I was in, and I remembered as they were searching my car, I had brought my laptop with me. And so they're like, you don't have a laptop? And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot I brought it. I swear I'm not lying to you. Open up your laptop, show us your pictures. Because again, they thought I was a journalist. And I had this one file with pictures of my kids. I opened that up, I showed them pictures of my kids like playing with their toys. They're like, okay, you can go. And every bit of information about the refugees that we help was in that computer. Every single thing. And so, you know, when I get caught, if I ever got caught, I'd just be slapped on the wrist, maybe a little prison time. I was panicking when I was thinking that I'd be jailed for a long time, but I'd be sent home eventually. The US has so much sway over China. But if those refugees' information were to get out, it would have been their life, and that blood would have been on my hands. So yeah, it was a crazy story and a crazy thing that happened. And again, think about how I grew up and the deafening silence of my parents as I was struggling in school and all these things, and yet perhaps that was an asset to me. Perhaps that did me some good. And I think my parents do regret it. I think they've told me as such, but perhaps that has made me who I am. When I was like 13 years old, we moved to Indianapolis. Indianapolis has a really large African American community. So it was like 50% African American, 50% white, and 0% Korean. That's when I really felt like a minority. I was getting bullied a lot. Oh, it was bad. It was bad. This one time, it was the last day of 8th grade, and I was like in health class. And we were just counting the hours till the end of school. And these 2 girls started ganging up on me. I don't remember, I probably provoked it somehow, but they started ganging up on me. And they shoved me to the ground. It was just 2 of them, but because it was 2 of them, I couldn't really stand up. And then they were like, there's a chink in the room. Everyone, hey, there's a chink, blah, blah, blah. And it was humiliating because it was girls, first of all. It was good. And then I looked over at the teacher to see if she'd do anything. Mrs. Patton is her name. I hope you're watching. And she looked at me and it was an act of aggression. She never liked me. Because I wasn't a good student. She looked at me and she looked away. And she let these girls humiliate me like that. And I'm honestly, to this day, I'm thankful for this experience. Not just that one experience, but just the experience of being such a micro minority. And that is, at an early age, I learned to fight back with my mouth. And I learned to cut tension with humor. Fighting back didn't always have to involve violence, because there was no way I would physically be able to fight back. I had to find back another way, and it was with my mouth. I started going to school there in like 7th grade, actually, in the middle of 7th grade. And by the end of junior high, I was voted funniest in my class. And my parents never said anything. They let me go through that, and I had to figure it out. Oh my goodness, that's such a theme, isn't it? You know, we are a Christian family. I hope my kids to impart my faith to them, but I also understand that it's up to them too to decide. I can't force them to believe what I believe. Oh my gosh, I am my parents. This is so crazy. This is so crazy. I don't care if my kids become doctors or lawyers. If that's what they want to do, then great. I want them to be able to, number one, relate to other people, to be able to walk up to someone and have a conversation with them, and have a good conversation, and be engaged, and not be afraid of people, right? And to be curious about other people's lives. That is so important to us, that they're curious about other people. And I think that is a very Christian thing about loving your neighbor. Well, how are you going to love your neighbor unless you try to get to know them, right? You can't do that unless you have some social skills, right? So yeah, I want them to be able to relate to people. I think that is a very, very, very important thing for us. Yeah, honestly, I don't have these grand ambitions for my kids. I'm so not a tiger dad. I want my kids to just be well-rounded, well-adjusted human beings who know that they're loved, and who know how to figure it out. My name is Daniel Chung, and this is my Korean American story.